Hello and welcome. This is Mark Dempsey with the National Convergence Technology Center. Thanks for joining us for part one of our special Inclusion Summit webinars. One of the goals of our CTC grant is to leverage the best practices of national leaders, like our presenter today, in recruiting and retaining underrepresented populations. We hope this webinar will provide you with some new ideas for successfully recruiting women into your program. Our presenter today is Pam Silvers from AB Technical in North Carolina. By the way, Pam is very involved with NCWIT. That's the National Center for Women in Information Technologies. If your program is not already a member of NCWIT's Academic Alliance, it should be. The cost is free and you get access to all kinds of resources and tools, plus an invitation to their annual summit meeting. The website is ncwit.org. Now we will turn it over to Pam.
Thank you, everyone, and I really do appreciate your taking the time and effort to come to a seminar on a Friday morning or to listen to it after the fact. I'm going to be talking about how you can market and recruit your programs to increase diversity in STEM, and then Colleen is going to talk about engagement in the classroom. During my presentation, I put in a couple of places for questions. However, if you have questions as you go along, just type them in, and when we get to that part, Mark or someone will let me know about it. As I'm talking, I do want people to know, and I'm sorry, my clicker is not wanting to work after trying it all day. Okay, our starting points have been on increasing female enrollment in traditionally male programs. So if you're here attending the webinar hoping, how do you get more males or how do you get more students of diversity, our strategies will work. It's just sometimes where I say do this for females, you might be doing it instead for males. The other is that we have looked at things from the 30,000-foot view. If you want to increase enrollment, I was a woman who was always going into STEM, so these strategies might not work for me, but if you want to get more females in your program, these are strategies that will work. I really started out with our grant and found this quote by Albert Einstein of the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. I think we do this a lot at the community college level. We go out and we recruit the same way we always have and then go, why don't we have more females in our program? And so I want to give you ideas not to stop what you're doing, but to instead think of it as scaffolding. You already have things you do that work really well for some students. You want to add other things that will help increase the diversity of your programs. As you're looking at recruiting students, you really want to think about how can you get students to stay? What is the goal of how you could have students attend community college and finish? And one of the studies showed that a big issue for students staying in college is, do they have a sense of belonging? Do they feel like when they come, they're welcomed, they know what to do, that they've found their place to be? I think this is especially true of community colleges that don't have dorms, which I think is true of most of them. A student coming in has to be juggling work, family, jobs, and so sometimes going to school is an easy thing to drop. And think about it. Have you ever skipped an event because you didn't feel like you belonged? Be honest, at the going home some night and you go, no one's going to miss me, I'm not going to go. Think of how easy it is for a student who maybe is in a non-traditional program, they're the only female in the room, and they don't really know if they're welcomed or wanted to be there. So when I talk about belonging, where am I talking about? First of all, in your recruiting materials. Are the materials you use to tell students about your school inviting and make them want to attend? Is your campus a welcoming campus? A lot of our students are first-generation students. When they come to your campus or website, is it really easy to figure out what to do as a student? For example, our student services building is one of the older buildings on campus, kind of hidden in the middle of it. I think there should be a big red neon arrow pointing down saying start here, but how do you let students know what to do? If a student is looking at your program materials, do they really know that they belong and that they're part of it? And do they say, well, this is something I can do and I know that I'm going to be welcomed? Do the other students, are they welcoming? Colleen's going to talk about strategies to engage students once you get them in the classroom, but do you have a culture of invitedness in your classrooms? And finally, do faculty, know that all students can succeed. It's sometimes hard in STEM programs because students grew up in classes that did not have diversity, and they often then become instructors and they want to teach the same way they were taught. That doesn't work for everyone. So what can we do? What can we look at and what can we change to get more diversity in enrollment and also to make students feel engaged and welcomed? As I looked at what we were doing with our grant, there really were 3 motivating factors that caused us to change a lot of our marketing materials and a lot of how we did the outreach, which I'm going to share with you. And the motivating factors were, first of all, students do not see themselves in many professions. They just see pictures of men. They maybe see no one. They just have read about a profession and they don't know what it is. Secondly, if you're a first-generation student, you might not have role models in your family. I was a first-generation college student. My dad had an 8th grade education, not because he quit school, but because farmers in Nebraska were done with their education in 8th grade. And my mother had a high school degree. Going to college was a really scary thing for me. So how can we help students know that it won't be scary? And a lot of our marketing points tend to focus on traditional students. We don't think or add that scaffolding of how do you engage different students. And to give you a couple examples, when you think computer professional, who comes to mind? If I say name some well-known computer people, a lot of people will say Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, or Mark Zuckerberg. This works really well if you're a white male wanting to go into technology. But if I said name a famous female in technology, sometimes I will get somebody who might mention Grace Hopper, but studies show that women need newer, younger role models to be able to relate to. Also, if you notice here, all 3 of these men are white males, so once again, are we engaging all students of they can major in STEM? To take this a little bit different, I also did a Google search for college student. And I just said pictures of college students. These are the pictures that came up. Do these really look like our students? You know, at a community college, you have a lot of older students. You might have students, if you look at these pictures, there's not very much diversity. There's not a lot of differences or letting a person who maybe is going back to school in their 40s after a divorce to know that they belong in college. We really want to make sure that we're being inviting to all students. So if you have first-generation students, you want to make sure of what are the rules of the game. A study recently said that the best way to determine if students are going to be successful in college is to look at if their parents went to college. They looked at all the different factors of when someone completed. Number 1 factor. At our college, 67% of our students are first-generation students. So they do not have that support network to be able to be successful and be able to know what to do. I can attest to this as having gone to college right out of high school and not knowing anyone who had ever gone to college. Even things like the first day of the semester when the professor said, here's your syllabus, let me know if you have any questions. I had no idea what a syllabus is. So think about the terminology you're using. If you're going, well, after you complete the FAFSA, make sure that you do X, Y, Z and use 50 acronyms. A student who hasn't ever been to college doesn't know what that means. We need to take those skills that their parents would give them if they had gone to college. We need to, as personnel at a community college, make sure we're explaining this so that people know what it is. Worst question you can ask us, well, you do know what a FAFSA is, right? That's going to make a student who isn't sure if they belong there be even more sure that they should probably not attend because they don't even know what a FAFSA is. Also, non-traditional students. This is a really big one in that they study of how do you retain women or minorities once you get them in classes. Colleen's going to deal with this more, but when you're both recruiting and trying to keep students, you really want to make sure that everyone on your campus is on board, that students can be successful. A student is going to know if someone doesn't believe in them, and if they don't believe in them, they're going to be very easy not to believe in themselves. Just last week, an article came out by Tiffany Hewitt, and there is a link on the bottom of this when you get the presentation. But she was talking about how to keep promising low-income and first-generation students from dropping out. One was lack of money and resources, and the other was the inability to navigate college obstacles. So think about this. Things that you know easily, how can you make sure that students find them? We have a little card that is printed up at our school that has different resources available to students, and has things like if you need a bus pass, if you need food, all those different questions. First day of class, I hand it out to my student. I don't say, oh, I have a card in case you need resources later. I just give it to all the students the same as I give them the syllabus. In my online classes, I have it posted. And a couple of times in the semester, I'll even remind them that it's there. Students who are first generation might not want to ask for assistance or ask how to do something because they think that they're supposed to know it already. So you want to make sure that you're looking at a student from the perspective of someone who has never attended college, and how can we help them, and how can we give them the rules for what they have to do. And so, Mark, at this point, do we have any questions?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, very good. So if you do get questions or have any comments, just type them in the chat window and Mark will share those with me in answering them. So what I've talked about so far is somewhat what are the challenges when you have a community college, that you want to increase diversity, you want to increase enrollment. As the economy gets better, a lot of times our enrollment at the colleges are going down. So how do you reach out to students who would not have thought about your program? And I'm going to break it into two parts. One is looking at your marketing materials. What do you have? What are you going to do with them? How can you share it? And the next part is going to be then, where do you actually go to recruit to find students? So if we're looking at the marketing, and I'm really talking about technology programs here, why do we tell students to major in a technology or engineering program? Why is it being pushed that people should go into STEM careers? Usually the number one reason is you can get jobs, and the number two reason is it pays a really good salary. This is, you hear it all along, we have way too many jobs that are going unfilled. How can we get more people for it? The thing is those marketing strategies work really well with men. From the 30,000-foot view, when they look at men and say, why did you pick the career that you picked? They do it because of job potential, they do it because they can get a good salary, and they do it because they get to use really great technology. And so it's almost a natural fit of why do men pick to go into technology and engineering careers. When they look from the 30,000-foot view of why women choose careers, they choose careers because they want to help others, they want to work in teams, and they want to solve problems. Think about if you talk to young women about what they're going to be. I was at a career expo at our STEM Academy, and I started asking the women, and out of 25 of them, 21 of them were going to go into an allied health field. They were going to be almost every type of doctor that you could imagine. When I asked why, they all said, well, I want to help people. I want to make a difference. I want to solve problems. So they were using these examples for it. Not a single one said, because I love chemistry and I can hardly wait to take inorganic chemistry. Not a single one said, well, looking forward to anatomy and physiology. So we really need to be looking at what skills are needed. If you are someone who ever talks to employers, the number one skills that they want their students, our graduates, to have is the ability to work with people, solve problems, help others. It's the number one thing I do as a technology person. We have to let students know that these are important skills. So you need to somewhat adapt your message to how students choose career. If you're talking to men, you do want to talk about the salary, the job potential, the technology. If you are talking to women, you want to also talk about the ability to help others, work in teams, and solve problems. I do want to remind you that I'm doing this from the 30,000-foot view, so some men obviously pick careers because they want to help others, and some women also pick careers because they want to know that they can get a job when they graduate. So it has overlapping there, and I haven't done total studies, but some of the recent information also shows that younger people are often looking and saying they want careers because they want to help others and work in teams. So this was the underlying basis of our marketing materials that we developed with our first NSF grant that we received 5 years ago, and we've continued to update of looking at it, and we really wanted to do the picture yourself, that women could picture themselves in degrees. And so I'm going to go over each of these items and show you examples of what we used. First of all, we had a display board that when we go up to conferences, we use it. And then the middle panel, what looks like those blacked out frames are actually mirrors, so that it says picture yourself in technology, and underneath the pictures it says helping others, working in teams, solving problems. You would not believe the number of people who come and look in those mirrors. And this is old, young, male, female, and they're kind of looking at it, and then they'll look at the rest of the display board. One of my co-PIs teaches in the mechanical engineering, and she said she was shocked that she really thought it was not going to be effective, and when she's worked at the different events, how great and effective it is. On the left panel, we do tell people that they can get jobs, that what the job market and salary is. And on the right side, we had listed the different programs involved in our grant and how to get more information about it. This has been used at one school. We were doing a career day for kids who were in 1st through 3rd grade. We had it on the floor, and they're all looking at it and loving it. We've used it for adults in different events. So it's works really well for a lot of events. The next is we created posters. These posters are on the boards in our Student Services Department. They're also, we print them 11 by 17 whenever we do anything with outreach, so high schools going to the YWCA. We give them a copy of this poster. Notice we don't say, as a woman, picture yourself. We just say, picture yourself in computer technology. And then it has the programs. The pictures we have are varied as far as age, and also trying to show people somewhat looking like they're having a good time for it. We did create one poster that was specifically does mention women, and that is picture yourself in a technology career these women did. This really became inspired from STEM Connector put out 100 notable women in STEM. And I looked at it and we said, oh, let's take some of those. We got their permission to insert those pictures. However, we also included pictures of our graduates and pictures of local women that often are in the news or being talked about. For example, the third woman on the second row, Cindy Ireland, had a very successful IT company that they sold for in the millions of dollars, but she was in the news. So these are people that students can see. Based on that, we kind of had this poster is 11 by 17, but we wanted something just of 8.5 by 11 of more specific examples. So from that, we created notable people in technology. All of the notable people we're talking about are women, but we didn't say notable women in technology. And we included what was in the STEM connector of what they did and why they picked the degree. But as I looked at this, I really realized I could not imagine being Dr. Sally Ride, and a lot of our students who are non-traditional coming to school might have a hard time also envisioning that this would be a path or a role that they would be able to follow. So what we created were notable WNC, I live in Western North Carolina, people in technology, and this was talking to some of the women, as I talked about, that live locally, getting what they did with technology and what they worked. However, when I read those, it also became a little bit intimidating. So we went to some of our graduates and put notable graduates from AB Tech. Gail Fitzgerald was in our electronics, and I personally do not know what a Tester 3 does for Eaton Corporation, but for students who are interested in those degrees, this is something she's moved up and works with it. Kelly Whittemore serves on our advisory committee. She's taught adjunct classes for us at AB Tech, and she also works at our local airport in the IT department. So this is someone that a student might see if they are traveling out on the airplane or see around campus, so they really have someone they can relate to. And it's really important that students can see that not everyone went straight from high school to college to working and never had any blunders along the way. Many of our students, the community college is often not their first choice. It might not even be their second or third. So they've already failed or not had things happen the way they work. And just yesterday, I was talking to a young student. Well, he's 27, but he was going, "Oh, I'm 27. By the time I graduate, I'm going to be so old." And I go, "I didn't get my bachelor's degree until I was 35 and my master's till I was 40. And he's like, "Really?" He was just totally shocked. So share stories where people have had to take the second chance, where they've overcome something that maybe wasn't working right the first time, because that's true of our students, and they sometimes think they're the only ones who've done it. We also wanted a takeaway for people when they left a exhibit, and our original grant said we were going to do flyers. Well, the reality is, if y'all think about flyers, as you walk out, they're papering the floor, they're in the garbage can. So we wanted something that people would use. And so we created bookmarks for each of our programs. And notice it says, picture yourself working in teams, finding solutions, helping others. We have the program listed. I'm going to mention, and you'll notice with our pictures, wherever possible, first of all, we want people who are smiling and look happy. The middle one, where it has two people working together, and the third one is also very good because students want that idea, I'm going to be enjoying what I'm doing, not I'm sitting staring at a screen. I'm also showing you what the backside of the bookmark looks like. Notice we're talking about the number of technology and engineering jobs, the higher wages, the projected growth. I also do like to hand in, whenever I can, that jobs do require some sort of post-secondary education. When I talk to students, I do tell them, IT and computer technologies was right for me. They might have something that is a better fit for them, but they have to do something beyond high school or they're not going to be able to get jobs. We also, at our college, have what they call program sheets. When we started our grant, most of our program sheets for our technology and engineering programs looked like the one at the left, where it was focusing on the men and the machine. The men could have not even known each other were there. And, it had the big picture of the solar panels that they were using. Instead, we got a picture of people working together, actually having a smile on their face and looking like they're enjoying what they're doing. And this has been a really conscious effort. When we needed pictures and our photographer from our marketing department came over, often women would hide from being in the pictures, not intentionally, but they'd be thinking, okay, I'm not looking right, I don't know about the picture. And so I would talk to our photographer ahead of time and say, this is the pictures I want to end up with. I need to have some pictures of people together, close-ups of two people. So I'd really talk to them about what I was looking for, so then they could unobtrusively just go in and move people around and set it up. So we ended up with the pictures we wanted without having to make a big deal of, okay, we only want women in our picture today. Never have said that in a meeting, but we just planned so that we would have the pictures so we could pick them out when we wanted to use them. Next, think about your program if someone does not know what a person does in that program. For example, Jim Sullivan is one of my co-PIs, and he teaches in the civil engineering department. And he went to a conference and he really realized from that someone was talking, what does a civil engineer do? Here is our state required curriculum wording that we have to use on our catalog and official publications. If you read this over, you would not have a better idea of what you would do when you would get a job. Obviously, if you have someone in your family or an adult that you've grown up around who's a civil engineer, they tell you what they're going to do when they graduate, so it is important to know what you'll learn. But if you're a first-generation student, you're trying to go into a career that doesn't exist, you really have to have a what will I do when I get a job? None of us go to school in a way to know what we'll learn. We go to college because we want to do something with what we learn. So Jim reworked it to the civil engineering technology curriculum, trains future technicians to help make our community a better place. They ensure clean rivers and streams, design efficient and sustainable buildings, improve safety on roads to reduce accidents, develop mass transit alternatives, ensure safe drinking water, etc. This makes me want to be a civil engineer, and I had no idea what they did before. For our grant, we created these flyers that say, did you know civil engineering technicians make a difference every day? We looked at the pictures for it and put this in, and this really works well. High school teachers, when I talk to them, always are grabbing lots of these flyers. We have it for 5 different programs to be able to share with students, because they go, oh, when a student asks me, I don't know what they'll do. I can look up what they'll learn, but do we know what they'll do? Next one is very similar. This was our information systems curriculum. It talks about what you're going to learn in it. It really tells you what type of jobs you can qualify, but it doesn't tell you what you'll do. Instead, we put that they're going to help make our community better, that they're going to use their knowledge to help people, that they're going to work with everyone, and that everyone relies on it. Once again, having the pictures of people working and having these available so that when I'm talking to anyone and they go, well, what will your graduates do? Be able to hand them a flyer for it. Okay. Any questions, Mark?
I have a question. Maybe you're going to cover this on your next little piece here. But so you have all these amazing flyers and posters. Where do they go? How do you distribute them and show them in the community?
Okay. And that is going to be somewhat in as we're talking. And I don't know if I specifically say where else we use them. And I know I don't tell people this. We use the bookmarks. I have taken them both to our bookstore for when students are buying books. I have them at our library for when students come here. And I have not taken them, but have figured that I would take the bookmarks to the downtown or Asheville library so that when students or anyone's checking out a book, they would have the information. Posters, I sometimes have them in the car, and if I stop at our local grocery store and they have a bulletin board, I ask if I can put them up. The Make a Difference, I primarily have used when I give it out to teachers or students at events like open houses. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. Are there any other questions?
There's one.
In addition to where distributed, what was the budget required? Can you share that with our leadership? Success metrics.
Okay. First of all, the picture or the program sheets were ending up that they are something created by our schools. So that was just paying attention to the pictures on it. That is also true. I did not include our website, but it includes what we have on the website of just being intentional about the pictures. Interestingly, the Make a Difference, when I talked to our marketing department, they loved the idea and they created them as part of their overall campaign for the college. The posters and the bookmarks, with our grant, we did hire someone, contract them to do the individual ones, and that cost, I'm not showing you all the different versions because we had multiple schools, but it cost us about $2,000 for her to design them. And then as we printed them, we send them to our print shop, so we paid the similar. So it's probably cost us to do up like 400 or about 600 bookmarks and about 50 posters. We paid our college printing cost, which were probably about $500 or so. The photos we either used when the college was coming over and having their photographer do it, or some of the pictures were taken by someone in our department who's really good with a camera. So some of it was absorbed by our college marketing department, and some of it we did pay for with the grant. Hopefully today, if you have the ideas, you're not having to do the design part of it, so it would not be as expensive.
And someone else had asked, with 90% of our marketing budget going to social media ads, how can we persuade administration that print ads are still useful and necessary?
You know what's interesting is convincing our school that social media is really important has been the harder task. So that was not as difficult, but I would really say that some of this still would apply if you're going on social media. Make sure that you have pictures of women featured in what you're going to do. Make sure that you talk about not just as what's going on with the program, but maybe it's a quick little social media ad that says, did you know civil engineers make a difference every day? And include the message, but include it in the social media campaign. So I think here, the media might not be as important as the intentionality of who do you have in your pictures? What are you saying of why people should major in these degrees? For example, a social media saying, do you want to help others, work in teams, solve problems? Major in computer technologies. You know, that still is giving the same message. So you do have to look at what your college's emphasis is and make use of it. But so don't as much look at just the specific materials, but maybe how the message is carried out. Any other questions?
Anything else? I think we're good for now. Thank you.
Okay, so we've created the material, and as I just said, really look at, look at any materials you have and what is it portraying for the message. So this might well be what people are looking at on your website. Jim took the message of what a civil engineer does and put it on his departmental website. We looked at pictures that were being used on banner ads for our school and really had to work at how did we get the pictures done and pictures of students we wanted. This was definitely more difficult than I thought it would be. What happened, we got a second grant and we were doing a banner and wanted pictures on it. First of all the pictures they were pulling out for the technology department were of the machines. It had people, close-ups of welding, it had close-ups of the solar panels, it had close-ups of everything, and I had to be very patient and say, well, we'd like to show the students of doing the work. And so it really was planning on intentionality of what our message was going to be and also what pictures were going to be on display. And that took longer than I thought it would. Quite honestly, we had, when we first started, thought, oh, we need more women featured. This is going to be fast. And it really did take us about 8 to 9 months to get the pictures. And almost every time our marketing is coming out with something new, I have to remind them of what pictures we want to include for it. So it is really being vigilant and looking at the message and how it applies for it. So you've created the materials, you have them out and about, ads are there. So where are you going to find the students to be in your program? And this is really the next part, is how do you get the students in the seat? Because it doesn't matter how great of materials you have. The real issue is, do you get more women or minorities or whoever you're focusing on in your programs? One really aha moment for me was at a workshop I went to shortly after we got the grant, and the person at it said, you really need to determine what your goal is. That at a lot of colleges, people mix up recruiting with career awareness. Now, depending on what you look at, recruiting is where you would have a person in your program within the next year. I might even say next 6 months. So if you're talking to people and they are at a position that they can start being students really soon, then you're recruiting. If you're at other events, you're doing career awareness. For example, if you're at a middle school career day, it is really great. And someday you might help raise the level for everyone of the number of women in STEM, but you really have to accept that a middle school 12-year-old is not going to make a difference on your enrollment next year or even in 2 years. That's also true of in our Western North Carolina, we have an event called eSTEAM, and it's open to 7th graders. They do one day of 120 7th grade girls, and the next 2 days later, 120 7th grade boys. Really great event. You get a lot of enthusiasm. We got some really good marketing out of it. but I don't know if those students who are still in high school are going to major in STEM or if they're going to come to our school. The same with something like Women in History Month. We had a lot of events. We were raising awareness, but we weren't necessarily increasing enrollment at our school. Career awareness events are very important to do. You want to get students thinking about programs young, but if your real goal is to have more students in your programs in the next year or 2 years, you really want to look instead at recruiting events. Now, for the recruiting events for high schools, one is you do want to check your data. For example, one of the things we found was that we didn't get very many young students in our technology program right out of high school, either male or female. So we focused on how did we engage all high school students, not with just a focus on females, because if we didn't have males coming either, it meant that we really weren't engaging students for some reason of looking at that. And one of our parts is that we found that often counselors and high school teachers are looking at pushing students to going to a four-year school. So instead of doing events for students, we have really focused our marketing and events on high school personnel. Notice I did not say high school teachers here. I did say high school personnel. We realize that, of course, counselors have a major impact. The high school principals do, but also the school admin who's sitting at the desk and knows all the students can have a very significant impact of what students think about or what they might consider. We do a couple of things with them. In the summer, we have a 2-day innovative expo that is opened up to 40 high school personnel. And when they come to the campus, they learn about the programs that we're focusing on. We also have panel sessions that end up being all women, although we don't emphasize that fact, that they're talking about what is happening with their careers and what things they wish people would know. We also do a couple of tours of different local businesses. And so we really try to bring together what is it that high school teachers or high school personnel should know so they can share with their students. I will say that what we realized is two things were happening here. First of all, since we hosted it in the summer, we were sometimes preaching to the choir. The same people would want to come each year. And the other is that we were not targeting or getting a lot of people. So we just received a third NSF grant that is really of the high school engagement. And although this is not the wording used on our grant, I like to call it intrusive engagement. I go pretty much to a different school almost on a weekly basis, and I attend department meetings. I go in the morning when the teachers are in the break room, and I share the materials we've created, like the bookmarks and the Make a Difference and the posters, with people so they don't have to make an effort to come to me, but they're just getting the information and hopefully getting the information multiple times. Because if you can get one person at the high school on your side that says, wow, this is a great program, our students have to know about it, they're going to turn around and could impact hundreds of students. So it really is a place that you want to be able to look at items. What we really found, though, in looking at our data, is that most of our students were of a non-traditional age. We had that, like I said, for students, a plan A maybe didn't work out, so they decided to come to school after a plant closing when something happened. So we looked and said, how can we reach these students? Where are they, and what do we need to look at? First of all, in Buncombe County, the county I live in, they have a displaced and unemployed workers program. It's primarily women who are on the Women, Infant, and Children program. They have to attend a training. So our college has a 6-week workshop that they attend. I go and talk to those students. They already know that whatever they started out wasn't going to work. The next thing they have is that they almost always have funding to be able to be students. And most of the time when I talk to them, they're going to become CNAs, certified nursing assistants, because they've never thought of anything else. So I always start my questions with, how many of you have used a computer today? And when I add in that cell phones count as computers, all the hands go up. I next ask them, have you ever answered a question for anyone about the computer? pretty much all the hands go up, and then I tell them, you're already computer people. The difference is I get paid to do it, but if you like being on a computer, you like helping people, then you should consider one of our computer technologies programs. I think a really forgotten place at a lot of schools is the GED students. We offer the GED program on our community college. I set up on their graduation night a table in the hall that I hand out the information for. I usually, and in fact I'm doing this next week, I go and I talk to the GED classes and say, hey, you know, the next step you might consider this. A lot of students think that computers are too techy and that they almost have a defeatist attitude of going, okay, I didn't succeed in high school, can I do this? I will tell you, if you look at that GED test, it is tough. If you can get any of those students to come to your program, you should consider yourself to be very fortunate because they are great students. At AB Tech, we have a group of students that are majoring in, it's the GOT program, General Occupational Technology. I just talked to our student services and she said about 94% of those students are students who want to get into one of the allied health programs and they don't have the grades, they don't have something to be able to, so they can declare GOT as their major. Really marketing to these students can be really good because if you talk about the helping others, working in teams, solving problems, it's why a lot of them are going to be picking a major that they do, but they really know, you know, they've taken the anatomy and physiology and they didn't like that. We can let them know that the technology is something that will let them have those skills. Once a year, I go to our NC Work Center. This is our local unemployment office. I go to a staff meeting and I talk to people about our programs, that where our students are getting jobs, what's available, and I take down the Make a Difference. I take down some of the posters. I usually don't take bookmarks, although I could, but I do take a lot of my business cards. And I say, if you ever have a someone coming in unemployed, they're not sure what they want to do, I'm always happy to talk to them. I haven't been down there since last June, so it's been about 11 months. Yesterday, I got an email from a gentleman going, I was just talking to Ellen at the NC Works, and she suggested I call you because you could probably help me figure out what I want to do. And so you've got to reach people. For me, the strategy of reaching people is you want to reach people who are influencers of others. So think about the ripple effect. If I only talk to one high school student, I don't have any effect if I don't get that student. If I talk to people at NC Works, if I talk to high school personnel, if I talk to the last one, which is our admission and counseling staff, and let them know what our programs offer, what kind of student is successful. Because a lot of people in our student services department are graduated from four-year colleges with degrees often in the arts and sciences. They don't know what a student does who comes and majors in the computer program. So letting them get the Make a Difference has been really impactful. I try at least twice a year to just get on the agenda of our student services staff and talk to them about what we have on programs, because at our college, we have 69 different majors. So if a student walks in the door of our admissions building and says, I know I want to come to school, I'm not quite sure what I want to do, I want to make sure that they think about our computer programs as a very first option. So you really want to think, where are their non-traditional students? We do not have a large veterans. We have a large veteran population, but I don't know where they're all integrated together. But it's possible if you have that, see if you can go and talk to a group there. It's really people who are ready to be a student today. How can you help them know that your programs are a really good option for it? Okay. Questions?
Any questions, anybody? Want to send in the chat box? Now's your chance.
Okay. As possibly people are typing in some things, I want to really emphasize that the biggest part that you can do of increasing your enrollment is to let students know that they can be successful, let them know that there are other people like them at your program, and not to single them out though and go, oh, we've had a lot of successful females in the program. You want to instead talk that you've had successful students who have the same skills as they want. I was at a college recently, and well, an employer was there and he goes, oh yeah, I prefer to hire women. They have a better chance. And that can be just as annoying to a female as saying, I don't want to hire women. We want to make sure that students know we're looking at them as individuals, but there's other people who have in the same position, the same issues as them going through, and that they become successful students, and that the person that you're talking to can also become a successful student. Because I'm reminded again and again how our students really think that no one else has ever gone through what they have, and they're embarrassed about it. They don't want to tell someone that they've gone through a divorce. They don't want to tell someone that possibly they're homeless, or possibly they don't know where they're going to be sleeping in a week for it. I had a student one time, and this will definitely date me, but he wanted to know if he could keep his zip disk in my office. And I said, well, yeah, but won't you need it tonight to do homework? And he goes, well, the problem is I live in the homeless shelter, and when I fall asleep, people ransack through my backpack and and steal stuff to pawn, so I keep losing all my homework. Now, it would have never occurred to me that he was living in a homeless shelter, and that the next is people go rummage through each other's stuff at night to see what they could pawn. So listening and having students feel comfortable to talk to you is important.
This is Ann. Go ahead.
This is Harold Waterman from Anne Arundel Community College. I'm concerned about female enrollments in our program. A lot of them don't show interest in computers. They, like you said earlier, they always are saying that it doesn't interest them and it seems too hard. And I'm just wondering, how about all of the different opportunities that exist for women who who want to go into that field? Do you think it's a good idea to promote that? And also, is there a one location where outside of STEM where we can point them to more opportunities for female students?
Are you talking about opportunities when they graduate, or opportunities when they're students, or both?
Both, when they're students and when they graduate, because I know that Google, for instance, wants more females, and Microsoft has a lot, but I think they're pushing for more women, and that's what I want to be able to reflect, so that they get an interest, more of an interest.
What you want to do as soon as we finish a webinar today is go to ncwit.org and sign up as an Academic Alliance member. They have resources, and it's free. And the real part is, all of us have experienced, at least in our state, where like Blackboard said they'd be free, and then when they got us all hooked, they suddenly said you owe us $250,000 a year. I belonged to NCWIT for 5 years, and their materials are free and amazing, and they have a lot of case studies, they have a lot of examples, and the reason they're able to do academic as a free membership is they're people who belong and pay the heavy dues are Google, Microsoft, Yahoo. I've got to go to their summit multiple years, including I'm going this year, and it is amazing to me to be sitting next to a table that suddenly has somebody from Google talking about what they're looking for IT. So I think that could be a great first place to get information. The other is a source that I can share and you might be getting it, or different people. It's a daily STEM connector, and they give every day about 5 or 6 little articles about diversity in STEM. And I have a Facebook page I post them on, and recently they've been focusing on making sure you have younger role models.
Great. And that's ncwit.com or?
Org, I believe. Am I right, Mike?
Right.
Yeah, .org,
that's right. And I just added the URL to my slides. So
okay, thank you, Colleen.
Yeah, no, it's perfect.
Okay. And so that would be those 2 things. If you're not on the mailing list for STEM Connector and get their daily updates, and if you do not belong to ncwit.org, and they have ncwit.org could be an entire workshop in and of itself of all the resources they have available, from engaging very young women up to where you can get jobs and careers. Depending on where your college is, look at who is working in local industry too, because I can say that 99% of our students are not going to go and want to, and it's where our market area is. They're not going to move to work at Google or Yahoo, so we have to let them know that there's local opportunities for women, which is kind of the picture yourself as a graduate, because that is someone they can really relate to.
Yeah, we're in Annapolis, Maryland. We're in the NSA and close to DC and all that area.
Right, so you have that available for you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay, Pam, we have 2 more questions on the chat box. I'm sorry,
okay.
just to move on here. Say you develop the materials and recruit non-traditional students. Once they're in, what support will they need? What is their success rate?
Well, you need to stay for the next session with Colleen, who's going to talk about retention in the classroom. But I will tell you that at our school, we have events for teachers called Focus on the Classroom that really talk about how instructors can make a difference and how you can engage your students. Our goal for the grant, and our first grant, in 2 years, we went from 39 to 75 women in our identified programs, while at the same time increasing male enrollment. Now, we've kept the percentage of females steady for the last few years, although our college's overall enrollment has declined some, but it's stayed up at that level. And our goal was to have retention of females equal or exceed the male, and we pretty much have done that in every single program. So looking at this for recruiting, and Colleen is going to be talking about how do you retain them once you get them in the classroom.
And then Pam, there's one more question. Are you able to share any of your materials, like the posters and the bookmarks? Is that shareable with others or no?
Yeah, I will gladly share them. Some of them are PDFs, so it's not as easy to convert them for your place, but I have my email coming up on a slide, and you're going to share it at the end, and I will share any of the materials with you, and definitely feel free to adapt and use it. Nice thing about the NSF ATE community is we share freely, so definitely I will share as much as I can and help people with that. The only thing I ask is if you adapt something that we've had, if you'll let me know and maybe send me a sample of what you did, so that when I do my National Science Foundation reports, I can say, oh, and this college took it and used it in this way.
Okay, great.
And Pam, this is Ann. You mentioned a few barriers along the way working with the publications people and so forth. Are there any other barriers in terms of organizations within your college, or I don't know, it just seems to me that there are those who have implicit bias against women. How have you overcome some of those things?
I'll have to say some of it has been patience. Some of them has been outweighing them. I was doing a workshop a couple of years ago, and one of the male instructors from our engineering said, well, what if you just don't believe women belong in your programs? And I did go and talk to his dean, who said he's retiring soon, and I said not soon enough. And
boy.
Yeah, by the way, he was gone within that semester. But I think, unfortunately, you do have our focus on the classroom works a lot on how are you invitational to everyone, and I really want to develop a workshop somewhat on unconscious bias, because obviously if you're aware of something you can change it, but some of the unconscious bias helps people realize where they might be at. It is that take advantage of low-hanging fruit of people who really want to go with it and work at building up momentum. I mean, at least now at our school, if someone mentions women or STEM, I instantly get the calls. So at least I get the interactions and can work on it. But yeah, we do have some naysayers at our campus who don't understand what the fuss is about. And some of them are female instructors. But I can only work at influencing and working around them probably, because some people you're not going to change.
Thanks. I think you said something that really has worked for me, and that's patience. Sometimes it's patience for the person in the role to change, And sometimes it's patience for the person to come around and be educated. But this sort of thing, it impresses me that it takes effort. It doesn't just happen, and it takes continual effort, not effort that's just funded by a grant that then potentially goes away, but continual effort. And I know you believe that too.
And, I think that's the intentionality of having, for example, I think there are probably not only myself, but a lot of people on campus now who really study what pictures we're sending out, what we're giving for examples and everything. And that's really the result of doing workshops, of talking. And so certain things we have changed the culture, definitely. And a majority of the people think, oh, yes, we need to do this. So it is working on it. For those of you who have ever been at a workshop I've done, you know that I love to end with a Maya Angelou quote, and this one seemed appropriate. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. If we do that for our students, we're going to engage them. Students know when you're sincere, and they also know when you're just saying stuff by rote. And so really of getting people to put out there and really be sincere will help you get the students. I am required to let you know that we are funded by the National Science Foundation, in case you didn't know, but these are things we have found. It does not necessarily reflect their views, although hopefully I've not said anything controversial. And this is my information to contact me, although Mark is also going to be sharing both the presentations and a video of this if you need it.